Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Gray Area. My name is Mr. Bennett. I'm joined by my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Poniotis. Yaso, my brother, what's going on?
What is going on this best show ever on YouTube, Blackman Filter, and on Spartan SQ Network?
Yes,
The
yes.
best
Make
show
sure
ever.
Absolutely. Make sure you visit certainly both shows. So again, we're simulcasting on the Sparta HQ network. Make sure you go there and hit the like button. Also, make sure you hit the like button here as you come in tonight. Certainly helps the algorithm. And if you consider and certainly anything given to us, a cash app to the Black Man Unfiltered Network or to our personal cash apps, we certainly would appreciate it. So but again, we thank you for being with us once again on another edition. And this is our call-in show. So again, anybody who wants to come up and hang out with us during the show, we're going to just be chatting as we always do. But certainly, anybody who wants to join the conversation, you're more than welcome tonight. As we come up, make sure that we drop the link in the chat so that people can certainly come up and join the show. My man Eric's in the building tonight. My man Anton from New Jersey is also in the house. So New Jersey's representing tonight. So again, good to have you guys certainly with us tonight as we just come together for some conversation, keep it light and just kick it around. But yeah, we were just talking in the back leading up. So I know my daughter, who's preparing for medical school, she leaves in August, but she has a wedding coming up in June. This is one of her besties from high school. My man Marcus Antonio is also in the building tonight. Also, salute to you. Good to be. Thanks for being with us tonight. So yeah, so she's going to a wedding. So today they kind of had like a sort of like a bridal party. It was like a kind of a luncheon for the for the mom was there. A lot of the relatives, a lot of the ladies were there. My wife was there also. So I was kind of clowning my daughter when I came back. So I was like, well, you guys didn't get her any lingerie? And my daughter gave me like the strangest look. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, I thought at these bachelorette and bridal parties or whatnot, I thought the ladies were supposed to give lingerie as a gift. At least that's where I remember growing up. And she kind of gave me this awkward look. And then I looked at my wife. It's like, yeah, don't at the bachelorette parties and stuff, isn't that? I thought that was a thing. You're supposed to go to Victoria's Secrets or Fredericks of Hollywood or something like that. Sometimes it's almost like a joke that you go there and get her at least something. It's like, it's it didn't even cross your mind. So I was kind of clowning her for that. But I wanted to talk to you about that bachelor and bachelorette parties. Certainly from the Greek perspective. From what your experience is, Pete. What's your exposure to that? Or are there things that are typically done in Greek culture for the bachelor or bachelorette parties that may be different from how it's done here in the U.S.? Any special giftings or anything that's done that might be different from U.S. culture?
Most of them that I know of, and I haven't experienced too many Greek ones. Excuse me. They just bullshit out at a bar with a nice old school good cigar.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple, nothing crazy. The women just hang out and bullshit.
Yeah. So
I,
no strip clubs, no
I think that's a
no.
really American, and the bachelor and bachelorette parties. That is really an American tradition. Over in Greece, it's not like a thing. They
Mm-hmm.
some do it. It's like, oh, let's hang out before the wedding. Okay,
Right.
cool. I'm like, let's grab some cigars, have a few drinks, and call it a day.
Right.
Nothing crazy.
Right. And so what's what from your experience, like what's the craziest if I can call it, you kind of saying it kind of boring, like there's not a lot of life to them, but even in the US, what's like the craziest bachelor party you ever been to without giving away we're not naming names here, but what's the wildest that you've been to?
It's been very low key. The most crazy one when I went to a strip club, and it was like, it wasn't really a thing for me. Like I was saying to you in the back, like I think strip clubs are a waste of money.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like the reason I say that, here's the reason why I say the waste of money. So you go and spend all this money on a girl dancing for you and grinding up on you and all that stuff, but you are still walking away with a boner.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the point of that? You still have to use your little lotion in your hand to take care of business.
Well, I would say this in full. There's levels to this, right?
No, of
You
course.
have you have clubs that where the women are there exclusively to dance,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's clubs that you go to where they have, I would just say, additional services, and I'll just leave it there. So you've never been to a spot where they had these additional services
Oh, I have
abroad. Okay, so in that, would it be
in
worth it
Jersey,
then?
actually,
Yeah.
in West Orange.
West Orange. Okay, we're not naming names. We're not promoting
No, I'm not. I said what
folks
area. I just
going
so,
to these
I didn't even
places
there.
or anything like that. But about just saying. So again, so you know, yeah, go. I would probably agree. Back in the day. All right. Again, let me preview. Back in the day, yeah, going to like just to see women dancing on a pole or whatever. That never necessarily did anything for me. But you certainly did have those spots that again. Where you can get additional services, and I'll just leave it at that. So you know, but yeah, but as far as the this bachelorette things, yeah, so they're going to Vegas, they're going to be hitting some different clubs and different things. So my daughter, she's actually putting an itinerary together for this thing. And obviously the groom, he's kind of cool with it, I guess in part because he knows who's going, and so they're going to do their thing for a while. And my daughter, one thing is for sure, she's not going to be involved in any kind of salacious stuff. There'll be no lap dances or guys in front face and all that kind of stuff.
No
But
magic Mike coming
certainly,
out.
yeah. Well, that's possible. Look, I can't. That's a possibility. I can't necessarily rule that out. But then she was telling me earlier that magic. There's a couple different ones. So again, depending on where you sit, if you're up near the close where they can get to you, that's one thing. But then there's like an area where you just kind of sit back and see what's going on. But just knowing the bride, the bride and her taste and whatnot, I don't think she'd be down for any of that. But yeah, male reviews obviously is something that's big in Vegas. But mostly with them, they like to eat. So it's going to be eateries and maybe some shows, Cirque du Soleil shows and things like that they may want to check out. But nothing too scandalous. And I got a couple of my sisters out there also. So if they find out there anything, they're going to go kick their butts also. So I got some intel out there as well to make sure that things go properly. In that setting, but even me, like my bachelor was pretty simple. It was kind of what you described. Last time I went to like a salacious kind of thing was my brother when he got married back 40 years ago, going on to almost 40 years ago. Yeah, we went to one of those clubs that have special services. I'll just say that. And I was in college at the time, and that was an experience. I'll just say that. But that's the last time because most of the other guys I know who got married, Cash Rain Mindset, thanks for being in the building tonight. Again, tonight is our call-in show, so again, make sure if you guys want to cam up, say hi to us, and also to talk about any topics that we've covered. So I know the last two shows, we went in on some controversial topics, inter-religious marriages, interfaith marriages. We talked about corporal punishment. And I know that was certainly a spirited conversation, with that, a lot of disagreement in the chat in terms of, people's views on corporal punishment. So go back and just, look at our playlist at the type of shows that we've been covering over the last few weeks. And certainly, any kind of engagement that we had at that time, you're more than welcome to bring back up those topics. If you had some things at the time that you wanted to say, now's the time to call in and certainly give your 2 cents on it. We'd love to hear your experience from my man Anton. He said he certainly has somewhat of an interfaith marriage. I mean, certainly his background and wife, they kind of they're I guess they're still within the Christian community. But certainly how they express themselves is certainly a little bit different. So again, so there was some good exchange there. But certainly, you're more than free to come up with us and speak to us about that sort of thing. So again, any comments that you have on the topics and any suggestions that you may have on shows that we can do in the future. So again, we've done everything from alcoholism and drugs, and like I said, just go back and look at our playlist, and you'll see the diversity of the topics that we tend to go into. And certainly go back and if you need a refresher, go back and watch some of that content. Also watch some of our shorts. We're starting to drop shorts again on the show as well. The interview we also had with our vets, and especially the interview that we had with the comedian Dwayne White, who just had his first Amazon Prime comedy special. We have more interviews that we're looking to set up with other comedians and other people within that space as well. So certainly. Those are areas of that we've explored, and we're just looking to give more diversified content, talking about all spectrum of life and humanity. And certainly, we appreciate it when you guys are. We certainly appreciate it when you guys are part of the conversation. So, but again, we thank you guys for being with us tonight. But I did have a somewhat of a peeve that I just thought about. Over the weekend. So, for those who follow sports, if you're pro corporal punishment, Stone Cold Steve Austin, give me a heck. Yeah. So it was interesting. And what was also interesting about that, some of the younger folks seemed to be for it. I thought a lot of the OGs would be more for it than the young ones, but we had some young people who was like, yes, pro corporal punishment. But obviously you had the NFL draft over the weekend. And obviously, guys are waiting around to get drafted. Obviously, the biggest scandal of the weekend, if you want to call it that, is Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, got drafted in the 5th round by the Cleveland Browns when he was projected to go a lot higher. And, so it got me thinking about, it definitely got me thinking about this idea of humility and what humility really means. And one of the things that's always kind of bugged me is basically when you have high profile people, when they get some sort of award or reward or promotion, it's like the first thing they talk about is, oh, I'm so humbled to receive this award. When to me it's a misuse of the word, number one, because basically to get an award, you've been elevated. So for me, the proper word to use is not that I'm humbled to receive this reward. I am honored, because when you honor someone, you're basically lifting them up. You're acknowledging and you're raising them up. So it says, I am honored to receive this award. But you see a lot of these folks, a lot of these athletes and actors and entertainers, they say, oh, I'm so humbled to receive this reward. It's almost like what they used to do to spoof on. And I just like to thank the little people that made this possible. And I'm just thinking, you can even tell you're not even humble at all. Because if you didn't win, or if you didn't get the award, then you'd be pissed off. And you be shouting and making all kinds of cursings and swearings or whatnot. I should have did this. This is robbery and all this kind of stuff. If you win, it's like, oh, I am so humbled to be up here before you people and receive this. It's like, I just want to gag every time I've heard it. And so that's always been something that, has just been a peeve of mine over the years. One, the misuse of the word, and the false humility that people who get reward. Okay, you got the next big contract. Oh, I am so humble by this, that you would think of me this way. Or I think so little of myself that I don't deserve it. Of course you deserve it. Otherwise you wouldn't have been in negotiations for the contract. So again, that just makes me I don't know what you think about what you think about that. That idea when you hear people, they get up there and it says, "Oh, I'm just so." It's like just say I appreciate it.
Funny you mentioned this,
or just say thank you.
It's funny you mentioned this because last weekend was WrestleMania, and before WrestleMania on Friday night is the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. This year, Triple H got nominated as the 2025 one of the members of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And in this case, he was overdue for that position.
Right.
Because what he's done for the business, what he's done for the company, and what he's done for upcoming wrestlers. So when he was doing it, he never said, I'm humbled or I'm honored. You can tell in his voice, and because he kind of teared up a couple of times, he was legit sincere, like what he meant, what the words he said.
Mhm.
And it was like he never said, "Oh, like I am so honored to have this. Oh, you guys really love me."
It was
Like,
already baked in years ago, bro. You know, it's
yeah,
like nobody,
like,
none of this is gonna catch you by surprise. It's like, who me? I didn't get it. You know,
and that is what I'm saying. It's just one of those bullshit things.
yeah,
Like you're not humbled. You know you're gonna get it if you're, Tom Brady, the cheater. Yes, he's a cheater. Eh, you know you're going to get your people are going to call you the GOAT for a reason because you cheated most of the Super Bowls. Let's be honest here. That is a little bit debatable, but whatever. We're not here to debate if he was a cheat or not, and we're just gonna say he is.
Mhm.
But the point I'm trying to get to is that's why I like the WWE Hall of Fame. Most of these guys aren't saying I'm humbled. No, they earned their position, and they know better to say that because their fans are gonna be outraged, most likely. They would
Y-
say,
yeah,
is a honor to have as a word. That one I can hear somebody
yeah.
say
Because
that.
like I said, that's the proper use. Like I said, when you are lifted, when you are promoted, when you're elevated, that's what honor is. When people acknowledge your rightfully earned accomplishments. So that's what honoring is. We're pausing to recognize the work that's already been done. So again, you don't have to necessarily take a back seat and say, "Oh, I'm humbled by this." You're just calling it what it is. If I'm great at something, and then you acknowledge my greatness and reward that, then again, I would rather you simply, at minimum, I would rather you just say simply, just thank you very much, and then sit down.
And that's another reason why I like the Hall of Fame versus any other Hall of Fame because it's just bullshit, most of them. But do me a favor, can you highlight Eric's comment? I want to address that for a second, really fast. So here's the backstory, Eric, about Owen Hart. That
Oh, he knows. He's as diehard of a wrestling fan as anyone, so he's
yeah,
definitely familiar with the situation.
yeah. So the reason he has not been nominated right now, for who doesn't know, is not because he's good enough or he wasn't nominated. It's his wife. His wife won't let him be in WWE Hall of Fame. Simple as that. It's
Oh,
nothing to
same.
do.
It was the same thing with Randy Savage. He did not want to go in, but it was actually Lanny. After Randy died, it was Lanny who was like, "I want to do this." In fact, he actually had a fight with his mom because his mom was like, "Look, you need to honor your brother's wishes." He didn't want to go in. And he said, "Look, I've sacrificed a lot for this family and whatnot." And in terms of when they had their own indie promotion and all those things that were going on, he said, "Fine, for once, I'm going to stand up for what I want. And I think my brother deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to make sure that he gets in." So that was totally Lanny who decided to take that on. But you're right. I mean, certainly if there's still a lot of bad blood, again, a lot of this stuff is undisclosed. We don't know what the settlements were regarding Owen Hart in that situation, but there's no question that is still a very bitter pill in her mind. I know Brett has made appearances, come back at times.
Yeah, he buried his hatches with Vince.
Yeah, but as
But he
far
also
as
likes working with Triple H instead
yeah,
because Triple H is more for the newer crowd.
correct.
Everything.
And that
He's
and
giving
that
back.
could be right, and that could be a change also if Vince is sort of out of or stays out of everything, then she may be more open to working through Triple H than through Vince. But yeah, but that's and obviously the loss here of your husband at such an early age, and again the circumstances and everything that was involved with how that went down. Yeah, that's going to be something that that's going to take a long time to heal
The
those
thing a lot of
wounds
people
of
are
many
having
offenses.
a problem with that situation was, and they said it in Dark Side of the Ring. What is the right thing to do after something like that? Do you stop the show? Or do you continue? And even Vince McMahon's documentary on Netflix said it, and we covered on my network. saying, should we stop the show? Continue. And Vince said, we're not stopping the show. The show must go on. That's what his mindset was always. Show must go on. And I think it was bullshit. Because if you remember, was it last year or a year before, this football player got hurt really bad. And the coaches literally walked in the middle of the field. They had a conversation.
Yeah, guy played for the Buffalo Bills. He basically kind of had like a basically a hard stop like on the field. And
yeah, he got hit really hard. I remember that.
Actually, yeah, but it wasn't like an impact. It was like almost one of those after effects. So it was like it seemed like a routine play, and then he just sort of like collapsed and just wasn't responsive. And it was like one of these sort of freak things that it goes, because I mean, you've had NFL, we've had hits that just knock people out. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that guy's done.
Even in martial arts, I've been at matches and I'm watching somebody else's match, a spinning hook kick to the temple, you're going out cold. I don't care who the fuck you are and how tough you are.
Yeah.
If you give me a martial artist do a spinning heel kick to even Tyson, when on his prime, he's going down. Simple as that.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, certainly. You know, in that situation, yeah, they actually stopped the game because, again, the players themselves were so distraught from the field that they couldn't continue playing. So, I mean, I would certainly give the wrestlers themselves, I would certainly give them some credit for continuing with the show and being able to perform at that level in spite of what they saw happen. But for the players in that field, they were so distraught that they had to, sort of cancel the game, and I think they rescheduled the rest of the game later on. But yeah,
I want to touch base with Randy Savage. When he was alive, the reason he didn't want to go in the Hall of Fame, it was no Hall of Fame at the time. It wasn't a real place to go see. Now it is a real place you can go see. I'm not sure where it's located, to be honest with you, but it's the same place that they keep all the historical artifacts from WWE, like the Iron Sheik's clubs, Undertaker's, gears over the year. They have a lot of stuff in that place, and they have a whole storage unit. I mean, this place is humongous. How much stuff they have? Like over 100 caskets. The Undertaker was being buried alive. Like, imagine being alive 100 times, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, one time sounds scary enough, just do it as a stunt. But 100 fucking times? That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But I think Randy, just as a person, he just seemed like one of those individuals where, like, if you cut him, like, he doesn't forgive very easily. So it just seemed to be like him and Hogan never really made up or what have you. So it's kind of like, like if you burn a bridge with him, it's like, I'm done with you. And, and again, I'm not saying that would have not worn off over time had he not died. Again, tragically, he had a heart attack driving with his wife in the car. Fortunately, she survived the accident. But, certainly, Lanny, he was definitely like, this is long overdue. And I'm going to go in spite of his mom's wishes, he pulled that off. But just as far as this idea of honor, though, or how to accept promotion, for example, gracefully. If you know you've been working and you put in the work to be worthy of whatever honor or promotion that is, certainly there's a way to do it. But again, false humility has always been something that's just, especially when I see it, and you know it when it's happening. Because sometimes I've been behind the scenes in certain things, and I've seen, I've heard the inner thoughts of the people who are being honored. And the attitude is more like, oh, well, he better honor me. Don't they know who I am? And then they get on stage, and it's like a total act. And it's like, I've been behind the curtain at certain times seeing that. And it just always has just left a sour taste in my mouth when it came to that sort of thing. So again, when it comes to, again, accepting, how to accept gracefully, again, thank the people certainly who've given you whatever award or honor that is. Use the word honor over humility. And I think you'll be a lot better off. But just seeing some of those guys when they got drafted, a lot of these guys, I'm grateful to be here. But if you were already projected to be like within the top 10 picks in the draft, so you were only getting what your due was when you got drafted. Now, again, the exception was, again, Deion Sanders and his son. That's something that people are going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about that on the One-on-One Sports Show this coming Wednesday We'll do a deeper dive into that whole situation. Again, this was a guy who was going into the draft, was expected to be the second or third pick in the overall draft. And because of, I guess, some interviews or because of his dad, I mean, there's a lot of controversy in terms of, why he dropped so precipitously in the draft to the 5th round, and even the situation that he wound up in. Now, again, no hate to the Cleveland Brown fans out there, because I know a few of them, Tarus and these guys who rep Cleveland, but even he was kind of disgusted at the draft because in the prior round they drafted a quarterback that wasn't even as good as Shedeur Sanders, and then they took him in the next round. So I don't know what they're doing or how they build their team or what have you, but certainly it just wasn't a good look, even where he did get picked up. Now I thought the Steelers may pick him up, especially as the rounds went on, but they decided to go into another direction. And so we're gonna do a deep dive this Wednesday on the One-on-One Sports Show here on the Black Men Unfiltered Network, where we're going to go, deep into that. And again, we may have some call-ins or guys want to give their 2 cents on the situation. We're going to examine the draft overall, as well as all the other things that are going on in the world of sports. But that's always been something.
I'll give you a better example, actually. Mike. Paul. Actually, I was thinking about Mike. Mike CQ, a friend of our channel. He was a guest here and everything. He ended up getting an award, a very high-end award from the Winter Warrior Project. And this is the highest award you can receive as a civilian. And when he got it, first of all, it blew his mind because he surprised him because he's a huge Giant fan, New York Giant fan. I mean, this guy lives blue. Mm-hmm. And one of the New York Giants, I can't remember his quarterback who was presenting the award for him, and he was like, Giant. He's like, he was more speechless because a Giant guy was there, and his like, it was on TV and everything. It was like very, you can see the difference between Mike, for example, versus this guy. Like, yeah. I'm like, seriously? I'm like, he didn't mean shit to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. All right, so again, this is our call-in show. We're waiting for the folks to come up. Again, you guys have smoke for us when we're in the middle of the show and people be like, drop the link. And we got to say, sorry, this isn't the show. So again, we put this out there for the last 3 weeks that we were going to have this call-in show. So again, you see the stream, it's in the chat. You can certainly get the link and come on up. Make sure you cam up if possible. We'll make some limited exceptions because we know certain people and we know their situations. So again, we can make some exceptions there. But this is your opportunity to interface with us. What you like about a show that we did over the last few weeks? What didn't you like? And again, any suggestions? And again, how we can be better. For some of the folks, we'd love to hear from you. And so again, the link is in the chat as well as on your screen. Make sure that you come and join us for the conversation. Otherwise, we'll just keep chopping it up. But I know, Pete, you said that you had a couple things you want to sort of address. So I can certainly give you the floor. I think I had my rant on the humility thing, on the false humility thing. But what's on your mind tonight that you wanted to cover?
We were talking about recently. I can't remember what show it was about me buying a suit, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And it came an idea like, we even talk about dress code for men or for women or in general in life, dress code, like different cultures, how they dress and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So well, this is a good opportunity. Let's talk about.
Well, I did have a rant.
Yeah, I was about to say
a
that
few months back about dress code when you're going to a fine restaurant. That it seems like in recent times, like I said, my wife and I, we've been to some pretty decent places, date nights and things of that nature. And, we like to kind of get dressed up, we want to sort of impress each other, kind of when we go out. And when you go to the restaurant, you're seeing people and they're dressed in jeans and shorts and sneakers. They don't take their baseball caps off while eating dinner. There's just certain, I guess there was some social graces that I thought that, and this isn't even young people. This isn't certainly a generational thing. Because I'm seeing older people, older millennials, even some Gen Xers who have that same energy. It just seems like nowadays, I guess the restaurants were like, Because you used to have some of these places, oh, you need a jacket and tie. And I'm sure there's still some establishments out there, like the really high-end steakhouses and whatnot, that still require like at least a dinner jacket or some sort of dress code. But some of the places you go now, and it's like just people don't care about what they wear when they go into the places. It's like, just what you would wear is like to a diner or something, you wear to a nice restaurant. And but for the restaurant owners, they're not interested now. They just want the money at this point. So it seems like that was an area where I saw that there seemed to be a drop in the dress code. So that I do remember.
So years ago, me and my cousin were texting back out. Yeah, I'm going to Centro. Centro is a New York Greek club, and no, it was a Caprice he was going to, and it goes to me, yo, you should come. Well, I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll come. I wasn't thinking New York clubs are at a different level versus this, dive bars I used to go to, and I end up wearing the sneakers. It wasn't like a bad pair of sneakers. It was a pretty decent pair, and he goes, dude, they're not gonna let you in. And like, he freaking, because he knew the bouncer, he kind of like bullshitted him and went like, yo, he's visiting from Greece, and like he didn't know any better. I'm like, seriously? And like, yeah, shut the fuck up, dude. Don't pretend you don't speak English for a minute.
Right.
But you're right. I see it all the time. People wearing these Jordans think they're dress shoes, and they're not dress shoes.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend, certainly with the athletes, obviously, because a lot of these athletes, they obviously have shoe deals. And so the idea of the tuxedo with the suit, again, you saw that with a lot of some of the draftees, on draft night. Now, the suits themselves can be, certainly somewhat exotic in themselves. They're not your classic suits, but you'll have like a guy in a full tuxedo and they're wearing, some Nike Air Force Ones or something like that with people as they go to different occasions. So I never quite adopted that look. I still think a nice pair of dress shoes, is certainly appropriate for the occasion. I do think there's certainly some essentials that should go into a man's wardrobe. And I think we talked about that a little bit the other night. So I think in terms of suit colors, you can never go wrong with having a black suit, a navy suit, and a charcoal gray suit.
So the first thing I was told,
primary colors.
And a dress code is 3 things. 1, you need a good watch. 2, you need a good pair of shoes. And 3, make sure you got a good cologne on you at all times. That's the first 3 things I learned about dressing. And I want to swing back to our friend Mariana here with her comment of the pajamas. Yeah, it was very popular in the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, it was everybody, all the girls were wearing pajamas to the stores, even guys. And I had a couple of my employees, literally, when I was working doing bars at the time, I was like a chef at a bars, coming to work with their pajamas. I'm like, the fuck is this shit?
To work. Wow.
Yeah. Like, I get you're lazy, but this is a different laziness. And chef pants are not uncomfortable. They're very comfortable. They're sweatpants pretty much. Just a little different material, so that it doesn't grease and burn yourself and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is trying to get to is, why the fuck are you wearing pajamas in my kitchen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it seemed the trend was going on for a while, and it's not as bad it used to be. I think it has kind of dropped down over the years.
Right. Now let me ask the ladies. So I know you got Lady DeBoa in the chat tonight. You got Mariana. Now, what is your current take, and what was your initial take for women, the trend of leggings? Because that is also something that has definitely changed over the years. I know a lot of women had a lot of pushback on that some time back. You would wear jeans, you would wear slacks, you would wear dresses, but leggings seemed to be the thing that you just wore everywhere all the time. You wore them to work, you wore them to the store. That just became a thing. You didn't even wear sweatpants, but just form-fitting leggings. and then they got more colorful. You got your leopard prints and all this kind of stuff that went out. So I'm just curious, as far as the ladies, what's your view on women who wear leggings all the time? Shout out to Lost in Translation.
Yo,
in the
my
building.
man.
Leggings are long underwear. Yeah,
Oh, I'm okay with that.
so certainly it doesn't
I
leave
love-
anything to the imagination. That's for sure. But I'm just curious from the ladies' perspective, were you initially kind of appalled by leggings and over time, because it's been happening for a while, so is it something that you kind of gotten used to, and are you guilty of, if when in doubt, to wear? Because I would think, just like, if it was up to me, I'd probably wear jogger pants or sweatpants all the time, because again, they're comfortable. I can go anywhere if I want to go out, walk my dog or whatever. Only recently I started investing into some better fitting jeans, some, with the stretch fabrics and whatnot. But certainly I get it. I like the idea of being comfortable. And so certainly I would think for a lot of women, leggings are, there's a freedom that comes with it. But Lady Noel, what say you? What you think about the women who wear leggings all the time? Doesn't matter, work, outing, club, whatever it is. That seems to become that seems to replace jeans.
Well,
'cause
before they
again,
answer that,
as
I
far
would
as that.
give you my personal opinion. I have a personal opinion on that, Paul. You know that,
Of
right?
course you do. I'm sure you do.
I love a pair of leggings on a good girl, on a woman.
I'm sure.
Like, I think they're great. Here's where my pushback is a little bit. All right, I was at shop right by me one day. Was it a week or two maybe?
Mhm.
So mind my business, pushing my car, do. And I looked over like, huh? This girl wasn't wearing leggings. She was wearing shorts, but so tight you can literally see the ass crack split in it. And you can see literally she's moving when she's walking, dong 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 dong. I'm like,
But that's the thing about even with the leggings, it's like everybody wears them. So again, there's no criteria in terms of who gets to wear them. So it doesn't matter if you're 300 pounds or 110 pounds. Everybody. See, lady said she had on some has some on today, but it seems like there's no rules when it comes to, and that's another thing, because there used to be some guidelines when it came to you dress to your size. You know what I mean? So if you were like a larger person, there was a way you dressed. If you was thin, there was a certain way you dressed. There were certain patterns of wear, like stripes, they say made you look fat. So again, if you wanted to look slimmer, you wore a certain thing. But it seems like a lot of those rules seem to be bypassed. That women, doesn't matter what your shape is or whatever, everyone's trying to wear essentially the same thing. And, it may
that's
not
where I think
necessarily
it's
be
plenty of
accenting your
pushback.
best qualities.
If you're a little bit, on the heavier side, you should not be
This is
wearing
right,
those
Joe.
tight ass clothes.
They designed them for maximum crackage.
That's laws for us.
Yeah, man.
But no, seriously, with your body shape, if you're on the heavier side, yes, I do think you should not be wearing a tight skin clothing outfit versus somebody who's more thinner who can get away with that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like the heavier set women feel like they can get away with it because of the whole body shame thing. That's where that started, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't have no evidence to say, yeah, you know what? Remember the body shame bullshit? Blah blah blah. No. I'm just seeing what I'm seeing.
Right.
But I've been realizing also the overall. I hate saying that. I don't want to use that word. The women who are more heavier set go more for, I'm going to do my makeup, I'm going to get my nails, I'm going to do all this stuff, versus the girls are more thinner or better shape.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't care about doing their makeup or hair or anything like that stuff. Unless hey, I can save a few bucks as doing it myself, or my nails and makeup and all that stuff, versus me going to a salon every month spending like $500-$600.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I certainly think that from a marketing perspective, I think certainly I guess from the clothing end, I think a lot of retailers just decided, you know what, we got to know our audience. And so if America in general is fattening, then we can either, because back in the day it was like women who were plus size or whatever, like there was those plus stores, Joyce Leslie or Lane Bryant, and that was considered for the big women. So it may have got to a point where maybe if you were a woman, you didn't necessarily feel, even if you fit the profile, you didn't necessarily feel comfortable going into a Lane Bryant store. It's like a guy going into a Big and Tall store. You know what I mean? And so, but for a lot of the retailers, they were like, look, if the majority of women are not a size 2 or size 4, if most women are a size 10, 12, then we need to get in on that particular market. And I don't know if you've noticed, like if you go even to the traditional stores now, you see the mannequins. Like they have like plus size mannequins now.
I haven't realized
in the traditional stores. So again, it's not just your Lane Bryant. So again, they had a niche, but when you started seeing plus size models in Victoria's Secret stores, then they knew it. It's like, look, we can, you know, if the majority of women out there are not a size 2, then what are we doing trying to put all our eggs into that smaller size? Go for the big ones and then make them feel big and beautiful, like the Lizzos and whatnot. Let them feel like, you know, they can walk the one runway with the thin models. So I think that's more of a marketing thing. And then women didn't feel so constricted that I can only, because you go to a Lane Bryant, there's, again, back then it used to be you dress to your size. Mm-hmm. And they had a catalog to say, well, these clothing is appropriate for a plus size woman. Victoria's Secret says, no, girl, you can go and wear this too. You can rock that too. You don't have to be, you want to go in a thong or whatever, fine. We got thongs for you right there. You know, so to the point that you were raising earlier about the woman in the store, yeah, they're making stuff that, again, may not necessarily be appropriate for the body shape, or like I said, with the leggings, it doesn't matter. You could be 300, 400, whatever. Any woman out there, they're wearing leggings, whether it is a good look or not. But nobody wants to be excluded, or no one wants to necessarily dress to their body type anymore. They just want the freedom to I just want to dress the way I want to dress. And I don't care about standards anymore. But look, we had popped up on the cam in the stream tonight. We have our first call in. We have our guy, the King, is in the building. King, it is good to see you, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Mr. Bennett.
First of all, make sure that you guys on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the King has a show, The King and Me. That's M.E. His lovely girlfriend. Is that appropriate? Your how do you guys are that partner, girlfriend, fiance? He's saying
wife.
I'm not putting the cart before the horse.
Mother, wife.
But certainly him and his lady. I'll say that.
I call her my lady.
His lady have an awesome show on Monday nights. The King and Me show Monday nights, where they talk about just relationships and whatnot. And we just heard the announcement on the last show. You guys are about to go to the next level as far as, you know, your relationships. So I don't know if you want to fill people in on that, and how's that process going, and just what's going on with you. You know, floor is yours.
Hey man, yeah, I'm doing good. First of all, thanks for that. I'm actually wearing, because I'm like, you know what, I'm going all in on the King and Me. So I'm wearing a King and Me shirt right now. But we're gonna be moving in together, man. This is both hers and my second time living with somebody that we were romantically linked with. I lived with my ex-wife as I was previously married, and she was in a relationship in which her and that person, you know, had lived together. And it's interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I think that it's going to have its challenges as we get adjusted to what that's going to look like for both of us. But she's an amazing person, so I'm not scared of it.
Yeah. Again, you guys, I just love the energy. I love the dynamic with what you guys, you know, the way you guys communicate. I think it's certainly something that is very admirable, and you guys just bring fresh perspectives to the show and to the platform. So again, I recommend anybody wants to go how dating in this sort of modern context. certainly how that looks. I think you can certainly learn a lot from doing the show. But how much of our content have you been watching over time? So again, we've been talking about a whole bunch of stuff tonight, and certainly in prior shows or whatnot. Any feedback from maybe a previous topic that we may have talked about or anything. So tonight we've been all over the place, because again, it's the call-in show. So again, we've been talking about bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. We've been talking about strip clubs. We've been talking about dress codes and suits and whatnot. And so what's your take on anything that's on your mind on what we've been talking about?
Ooh, okay, I'll follow y'all lead. I'm just joining. I do a sports show as well on WTF Nation Radio. It's one of the largest online streaming platforms for veterans, 2-point-something million followers. I'm just
Oh, nice.
So I'm just coming off that and coming over here. So, let's see. Man, wow. On the spot here. I don't know. What were y'all just talking about prior to
Let me
the
ask you a
show?
question, actually.
Yeah,
Because you're a parent. As your daughter was growing, what was your ideal with corporal punishment? Did you enforce it in your house? Did you not enforce it? What was it?
Okay, so I've only had to spank my daughter once, and it was when she was really, really younger. I grew up getting spanked, so it wasn't like that was anything that was a no-no for me, but I only had to do it one time, and it was my daughter was 3, I believe, 2 or 3, and she spit not on her mom, but towards her direction when she heard something that she didn't like. And to date, that's been the only time that I've ever had to correct her about anything behavior wise. And outside of that, she's been a great kid. So it was a tool for me. I wasn't afraid to deploy it, but I only had to do it that one time.
Right. Now, does your attitude change if you had a son? Would you be more open? Okay. Yeah.
No. It would have been the same. Like Lady Navoa said in the chat, I believe it works. I believe it works. I believe it works as long as you have a healthy understanding of why you're doing it, and to a degree that the kid understands why it happens to them. I ended up getting on the wrong bus intentionally when I was in 2nd grade, I believe. It was 1st and 2nd grade. And this was before smartphones and pagers and things like that or whatnot.
Tags and all that stuff.
And I ended up going up somebody's house where they said that their parent was going to be around, so we're just going to be playing video games. And what I intended myself on doing was leave it at a decent time to get home to where my mom would notice, because she would have been getting home a little bit later in the evening. Well, I'm a 1st, 2nd grade. I'm not keeping track of time. My mom gets home. I'm not there. Calls the cops. I eventually get home. And once the cops left, I couldn't sleep on my back for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
She tore me up. Once she knew I was fine and okay, and I didn't lie about what happened. I I fessed up. I've typically been an honest person, even when I knew that it was going to cost me. And she as soon as the cops left, she left me a new one. I wish the cops would have stayed. They might have arrested her for like what she did to me. But I learned my lesson.
Gotcha. And was that a continuous form of discipline, I guess, throughout your youth and adolescent years? The belts and the those sort of things, or was that one time she gave it to you and she didn't really have to do that again, or whatever?
That was the one time she gave it to me. She didn't really have to do it again. My dad is in the picture, but he wasn't one that had to really do anything. There was an incident when I got older that's hilarious now that me and him even laugh about to this day. But prior to getting to that, my mom was somebody that just yelled all the time. And me and my brother one time was like, you know what? Just whoop us. Don't yell at us. Just whoop us. Because we got tired of hearing her yelling about things. And we even said that one time. It's like, just stop yelling. Whoop us. We'll take that.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that was we had a lot of certainly feedback, a lot of back and forth in that show, different views. Now, again, I've never really used corporal punishment with my daughters. My youngest one's 21. Again, maybe the whack on the butter. What my wife used to do, she used to do this flick. She would take her finger like this and flick them,
Yes, sir.
and that was enough. But we just decided, because we both come from that, or certainly I do. I've been whipped with any and everything you could imagine, and it just wasn't something that we decided when we were going to have kids. We wanted to change the narrative, and then once I started looking at the statistics of corporal punishment, it's like, is it actually giving the outcomes that people want? And so,
What do the stats say?
well, basically, we're saying in terms of development, so what you're doing is you're teaching compliance, but you're limiting in terms of being able to think rationally, to develop a thought process of how to go about things, rationally, how to approach a situation. It was simply for compliance. And as far as people talking about, and again, I can't assume anybody. I know we got Boss Man in the back. I know he's used it, and he seems like he's able to use it in a disciplined fashion. The whole idea of, well, if you use it, you shouldn't beat a child in anger. And again, we know that seldom happens. And so, and as far as, people who are, more prone to violence, those who are in our prison systems, they've all had it. And so for certain people to say, well, certainly, for every person that says, oh, those whoopings kept me out of trouble, I can go and give examples of people who are in the prison industrial complex who tell a different story. So again, but that came later. I just went into parenting with this idea that was just not something that I wanted to use as a primary method of punishment. That conversation, rational thinking, discipline, all those other methods, and it just forced me to be a better parent. And it also forced me to be more consistent with, when I said no, then making sure that I meant it, and also explaining why things are the way they, we're doing things the way we're doing them. So it just helped me to elevate, but it wasn't just that first line, because I would get, and friends of mine, we just ask a question. It's like, parents ask you to do something. It's like, what was that? And we generally didn't understand. And the parents said, what? Don't talk back to me. You heard what I said, and then whacked. You just got whacked all the time. And that just wasn't something that we thought was healthy. But the research I found later, and it simply just confirmed more. But I think certainly in the Black community, I think we almost have like a healthy, because that's the thing. Black people whip more than any other ethnic group.
Greeks, that's why you say that.
I'm just saying. I just go with the statistics, but it's saying we're a minority in the nation, and so again, are we getting the most out of it? So that's what kind of drove the conversation from last week. But it's such a fixture in our community. So you saw like Lady Namoa tonight. I know we got Braxton the Steak Fiend. For a lot of those folks, it's like they're advocates. They're like, yep, we got to use it. But then you had some older OGs, like OG J Speed was in the building, and he acknowledged that he used it with some of his older children. But then with his younger ones, he decided not to use it. And in fact, he actually went back and apologized to his older kids for using it, because he realized that it wasn't necessarily an effective form. It was, again, training compliance, but it wasn't really helping to nurture and to foster the outcomes that he was looking for. So again, a lot of different views on it and I respect all of those. Again, it's your house, and obviously you have to do things the way you do it. But I think since you're a sports guy, I'm sure you remember that Adrian Peterson situation a few years back.
Yes.
And that brought like a lot of attention to what was going on. And that kid had, when he was examined, he had marks on his scrotum. He had stuff all over. And that just created a conversation at the time, and then it sort of died off since then.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's one thing about a little whipping, like a little slap here, because like for example, like you saw a candy bar, okay, a little slap on the hand kind of thing. You know what I'm saying, or behind. But when you're beating the shit out of your fucking kid, you should give your both arms broken. Simple as that. And like that's going too far.
I got paddled in school. I can tell you. Dr. Hooks, he was my 5th grade principal. I had a mouth on me back in the day, and I got sent to the office for talking back to a teacher.
Mhm.
And after the third time, because my parents filled out the form that they were allowed and able to do it, I ended up catching this big wooden paddle that had holes in it. 3 licks to the backside. Pop, pop,
Mhm.
pop. He didn't come
I
and
had a
just
hook. That's
try and
interesting.
like break the board on me, but I
Yeah.
felt it.
We had a hooks too. We may have to look at that. Well, we also had, but the same thing. Elizabeth, Lafayette, Elementary School. Yeah, this man, Mister Hooks. Now he had authorization. He used the belt, and I've seen like in the hall, like he's got the belt, and he's with the mom present, and he's going to town on his kid with the mom standing there. But again, it was something else. You had to sign the waiver form or whatnot, and you allowed that. But he was not about above taking that belt off and giving it to you. So again, I don't even know if that's allowed anymore in schools. But this is back in the 70s. So again, it's certainly a very different time. But
I'm pretty sure right now it's kind of illegal. Even take the belt off. Forget
yeah,
about getting them.
yeah. Oh, back in the day, like people had like it was like torture racks. So you had the width of the belt, the thickness of the belt that you had. It was like guys had arsenals back then in terms of being able to minister that. But have you and Michelle now? Again, I don't know if you intend to have children. I don't know if that's in your plans.
We
if
don't.
not to adopt.
I actually got
okay.
a vasectomy while I was still married, and
Yep.
that was something that Michelle knew prior to us.
So children, so adoption wouldn't be in your future or anything like that. That's not a.
No, not for me. I only really wanted one kid. Even like I just knew that growing up. I was the oldest of 4, and I always saw like we weren't poor, like piss poor. But when you have as many as kids as my folks had around, I'll say it like that because there's a story with that.
Yes, and we've heard that also.
I knew that you really couldn't like it. You needed money to have a family. So for me, family planning wasn't something that I took lightly. Now, my daughter wasn't planned, but I knew I didn't want a large family because you need money to support that family. So shortly after my daughter was born, me and my ex-wife talked about how we want to ensure that a whoopsie doesn't happen again. And it eventually came down to her not wanting to do things because it would have been harder on her.
Yeah.
Me having a vasectomy was just easier.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I gladly did it. I know some people hesitate when they hear it, but Paul can attest it's not that bad. Nothing changes.
You did it too, didn't you?
Yes, after my third. But again, so we were intentional about. Now, look, if I would have got the boy-girl split, we knew we were going to have at least 2. We definitely weren't going to, just have one. So we knew we were going to have at least 2. If I would have got the boy-girl split, I might have stopped then. The third one was kind of like, okay, this is our last shot. We have a closing window of opportunity, and are we going to do this again? So I hit the jackpot, and I got 3 girls out the deal. Conversely, I got guys who got 3 sons. So again, there's balance to the universe. But I got the girls. And yeah, after that, now the only exception would have been, let's just say if my wife, if the third one was complicated, she had to have like a C-section or whatever, then my thing is, well, you're kind of already in there. You can kind of do the tying or whatever and finish it off. But that was the easiest delivery. So it was just going to be on me then to say, okay, well, yeah, this is on me. But yeah, certainly got it done. And certainly I don't I regret it. I fulfilled my average 2.1, so I fulfilled my average, and I was done. I didn't want to have 5, 6, 7 kids unless I was really I'd have to be really well off. But I would say this: I certainly think obviously people are having fewer kids. I think period over time, and people oftentimes blame money for that. But then I think about back in the day, like my dad comes from 13 kids. My mom comes from 9 kids, and you just had these larger families. And even back in the day, especially in the South, they didn't have a ton of money, but somehow they were able to have all these kids. But now it's like people say, well, one kid is hard. Now I understand things are more expensive, but is it that much more expensive where you can't have kids, or is it a lifestyle that you're trying to give to your kids more so than the cost of having kids?
It's a lifestyle for me. When I say it, that's what I mean, right? Because we did it with 4 kids, and it's not like we were swimming in money. I
Correct.
know other families that they were above the poverty line, didn't rely on government assistance or anything, one parent working, and they were able to get their kids and raise them up to 18 and beyond or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I wanted a lifestyle where I could afford vacations, I could afford taking trips, and I'm not worried about having to get 2 rooms because I've got a family of 6 to consider.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to Japan in July. It's me, my lady, and Castle, and I've got the budget pretty much ironed out, and I'm just sitting here scratching my head like, man, if this was like a family of 4, which is the average family. Paul, you got a family of 5. Man, that budget that I was originally thinking would have been like here,
for
not
even
here.
for traveling within the country. I mean, like
Mhm.
family like I've gone to family reunions like every few years. I'll go to a family reunion because they want to have it in Fort Lauderdale. They want to have it in this. But I'm saying to move a family of 5 cross country or whatever, like you said, the hotel accommodations and whatnot, it's pretty pricey. And the thing is, most of these since most of my kinfolk are from the South, for them it's just a drive. They get in a car, drive. I gotta fly, so getting airfare for 5 people to travel around. So again, for us, it was always a situation that I can't necessarily make these trips every year for these things, 'cause I got all these amounts to consider. So again, I definitely get the lifestyle question, but I think that's more so what's driving a lot. And we had a show on that talking about how more couples are opting to be childless by choice, even though they're healthy enough. They'd rather have their fur babies. Do you guys have pets? You have dogs?
No, I travel too much to want to have to consider that an extra thing to do.
Right. But again, for some, it's they got 2 or 3 dogs. They rather have 2 or 3 dogs than 2 or 3 kids. And I can certainly get that from an economic perspective, even though dogs are work. But certainly I can understand that. But that's a growing trend. But the issue is they're saying it's causing problems for the nation. Now, you talked about Japan. Now, Japan is having an aging problem because people are not marrying and the population's aging out, and you didn't generally need 2.1 people per family in order to sort of keep the population growing. So we talk about the social security situation here with the baby boomers and younger people not having, they're not replacing people. So again, Japan is on this sort of verge of this economic situation where you're going to have an aged out population and not enough of the young people to support the social safety net. So yeah, it is supposed to be this sort of natural thing, but people are certainly opting for lifestyle and travel and other things over just having family. But certainly, even if today, I still think I would want the family size that I have. Certainly, we just hung out last week, and again, we got I got grad parties coming up because my last one's graduating college. I got one I'm sending off to medical school, and so getting everybody together. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I think having a I wouldn't say a giant family, but these days having 3 kids seems to be, if you're doing 3 and above, that's like it's like, man, you got 3, because 2 seems to be the limit that most people set.
I had a first time experience today that I like to share with y'all and the people watching, man.
Sure.
Go for it, man.
So my daughter told me a couple of days ago that she was looking at wanting to go to the bookstore to meet up with a potential roommate, as she's going to be a freshman going into college this year. And I'm like, wait, how do you know the potential roommate already? Well, they have apps where it's kind of like a roommate marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go on and you list your interests and things like that, and it will allow you to be able to request, like, meet somebody that's coming in the same class as you, and y'all can talk to each other in advance to see if y'all will be a good fit. And then the school does a really good job of making accommodations to get people that want to live together to live together. And to me, I thought that was fascinating. Now, I didn't go into college right after high school. I went into the military. So you sat and you slept wherever they assigned you.
Oh yeah, it was a lottery.
Your basic and tech school and things like that. But most colleges, not all, most colleges have a system set in place now where you can join an app and then request to link up with people that you might have met prior to y'all coming into y'all's freshman year together. So I took my daughter there to meet this young lady, and they linked up, and her parent, she did have a mom and a dad, but just the mom was there, and her sister showed up, and me and the mom had a chat just about our kids and going into college. She had an older kid and a younger kid or whatnot. But I just thought, I was like, man, like this is cool, you know. And I was proud to watch my daughter navigate meeting this stranger just to see if they would connect well enough to want to be roommates or whatnot. I stayed hands off.
Yeah.
But at the end, I asked her, I said, hey, you know, how was it? How was first impression? She said, oh, you know, even though it's our first time meeting, we've been talking online, and my daughter's a gamer, so she's used to talking to people online and things like that. But it was a really good dad moment for me. And it was also interesting and a new experience for me, because I'm like, they didn't have this stuff. If I would have gone to college right after 2, you would have been, you got who you got.
Yeah. And honestly, I guess because I grew up in that generation, I kind of appreciated that. Because remember back, I don't know if you might be too young enough to remember. I know Lost does, but remember like the Real World when they came out. So it was like you didn't know who your roommate was going to be. It was like a culture shock, because a lot of us, you might have came from a small school in Iowa or someplace that was very isolated, and you're going to be in a situation you might be rooming with a black person for the first time, or a white person for the first time, or someone of a different lifestyle altogether. And then you got the floor together, and it just became this dynamic where it was like, well, I guess we got to try to figure everything out. And then that's when the Real World 89, 90, that's when that came out, and that whole generation of
and the thing Paul, is like the newer kids, if you don't have a roommate, they're gonna put you one there, and they give you the emails and everything. You guys need to start talking 6 months prior and figure your shit out. That's your roommate, you like it or not. If there's no changes or nothing, you have to wait to next school year to change roommate if you want. You're not happy with them.
Yeah. But I think there was for me, I remember that time fondly. It was strange because, again, I had no, like, people, like, live like this or just the different views. But, again, throwing everybody into that pressure cooker, so to speak. I mean, not to say that every day was good. Yeah, you definitely had fights and blow-ups and things of that nature. But it was definitely an experiment that I don't think I would have benefited from had I not been in that situation. But we have also joining us tonight, again, very honored. Remember the word use of the term, ladies and gentlemen, honored that lost in translation, he who is, has decided to join us tonight in this place tonight. So, Brother Lost, first of all, how are you doing? How's your health? And what's going on with you, sir?
Come on inside and get yourself something cool to drink.
Hey.
What's going on, sir?
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you. Listen, I am doing well. Thank you for asking. It's always a pleasure to hang out with the fellas, man. It's been a while, man. I appreciate y'all, man. I really do. I enjoy the show. Sometimes I just sit back, man, and relax. But tonight was a good conversation.
Yes, sir. Now, again, I'm hang on. Lady Navoa, she's asking a very interesting question. Are you out of the market, sir? What? But what is going on with you, sir? If you have anything interesting to share, I'm just saying. But I guess I think your background was giving her some vibes that something might be cooking with you. So if you can,
you know what, man, I love that background because it reminds me to keep the main thing, man.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Sometimes we get up here and we get to clowning and acting a fool. And I go back and I look, I'm like, you might want to keep that thing on the even keel. You know what I'm saying? So that's the main reason why I use that background. But as far as me being off the market now, man, I'm still out here, man, trying to do what I can, man. Trying to make the market a little bit better and more palatable for gentlemen like myself. You know what I'm saying?
100%. So what's going on? So conversation tonight, we've been kind of been all over the place or whatnot. So, you know, you can certainly get in when you fit in, whatever nuggets or gems that I know you're going to drop. The floor is yours. So what's going on?
You know what?
And King, you're certainly free to stay on with us. Again, we just chopping it up. You want to hang out with us in the shop or whatever? It's your call. If you need to go, I totally get that as well. Again, anybody who wants to get in tonight, again, the link is in the chat. Certainly to call in with us, just to hang out, say hello to us. Certainly we appreciate any interaction that you want to give tonight. So go ahead, Laws.
No. Paul, correction. Now you want get your asses in here because you guys talk shit, and now the opportunity So you wanna fight, like a fight is in your hands.
See, Ghost is like my Luther. He's like my angry translator. I try to be diplomatic and politically correct about it.
I'm talking. Shut the fuck up.
So he comes in with the angry, we play this good cop, bad cop kind of thing back and forth, whatever. So but it's all with love though.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's what keep it spicy, man.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? King, I was teasing him, man, all last week about this 5-year plan thing, man. And and we never asked people about their 5-year plan, but does kids include in that conversation? You know what I'm saying? As far as discipline and guidance, because that nurture versus nature conversation is a conversation that really needs to be had. Because you'll have somebody who's used to whooping kids and raising them and just do what I tell you to do and all sorts of stuff. And then you got some people who are a little bit more cerebral. You know, they want to be able to reach their kids through talking to them or whatever. You know, like, hey, look, you know, I told you not to do this. You know what I'm saying? What to your idea, what would be a fitting punishment? You know, I'm trying to reach you without beating you. You know what I'm saying? Kind of give them the opportunity to have some say-so in their punishment, you know? And let them know there are consequences in life. And I have to let them know, look, there's no way that I can tell you all the different consequences that can happen from your actions. I just want you to think before it happens. So that way, you know, the situation and stuff, at least you have some type of control over it, you know, ahead of time. And then we talk about peer pressure and, you know, that type of thing. Because sometimes kids do stuff, you know, to fit in with their friends. But if you reach to your kids and you tell them, I say, hey, you know, you're going to be worth something, whether or not these people agree with you or not. And 9 times out of 10, you know, sometimes most kids do stuff to fit in. And if you had that conversation with them ahead of time about fitting in, then they wouldn't be susceptible to peer pressure, especially if you have older kids who are probably a little bit older than the rest of the kids. There's a certain level of responsibility that most older kids have to the younger kids to guide them the right way. You know, my dad told me a long time ago, just because you can beat somebody don't mean you should beat them. You know, sometimes you want to teach them and you want to reach them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because I was always the oldest kid. I was always the biggest kid because couldn't nobody beat me. But it would be unfair if I just start wailing off on folks. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You can hurt somebody that way. But if you start using stuff like diplomacy when necessary, that diplomacy will actually take you a lot farther than actually beating people. You know what I'm saying? It's the main reason why we have situations like we have now in the country, man. We have to have diplomacy between, you know, other countries, like between China and America. And you can't just light up folks with nukes. You just say, hey, man, let's see what we can come to the table to make sure that it's a fair agreement between trade between countries. And diplomacy usually wins out because nobody wants to hurt their people, you know, especially when somebody else has big guns too. So diplomacy is one of those things we want to actually start with our children very, very young. So they get used to doing that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And teaching them how to think outside the box versus just beating people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Now I want to essentially, because both you and King, hang on, Pete, both of you are old. So King, you said you're the oldest.
Yes, I'm the oldest of 4.
And then Lost, you were the oldest in your family as well. So again, talk about that responsibility of that big brother. You know, you had your father who was like the authority, or your mom who was like the authority, and they're the ones who pretty much dished out. But did you find it, did you feel the pressure of having to be that example for your younger siblings, or how was that interaction? Did you think it was fair sometimes that why is this being on me? Like, I'm the youngest of 5, so I'm coming at it from a totally different, even though I was raised pretty much as a single child because there was such a big age gap between my brother and me. But if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, what was that like being the oldest and the firstborn son also? So there's something that goes with that. Talk about that a little bit and what that was like for you growing up in that situation.
Yeah, I'll start. So we were considered latchkey kids for a good little bit because moms did work up until a certain time. So my parents used me as the extension of them. They would always tell me, you know the rules. Make sure that this is done. Make sure that that's done. And if my brother stepped out of line or if I stepped out of line, I got in trouble for stuff that my brother didn't do because I was expected to be able to get him in line and have him do what my parents' overall rules and stuff were set up to be. So I definitely felt it. They would have the conversations with me all of the time about ensuring that the house didn't get burned down, nobody got lost, homework got done. Being that I was the oldest, they didn't have that conversation with him or with him around. It was always me. If they had to tell something, they would send him out the room and tell me, look, you're the oldest, you're our eyes and ears. If something happens to your brother, like, yes, we're his parents, but like, you're here to be an extension of us. They were clear about that. So I felt that early on, and I always took that, and it never seemed like a burden to me because I was used to it.
Gotcha. Lost your experience?
You know what? My situation was the same, but it was a little bit greater. I was not only the oldest son, I was the oldest grandchild, the first grandchild. You know what I'm saying? So it was more of a situation where you were responsible for not just your brothers, but your cousins too. And not only that, it was one of those situations where the first thing I learned about edification was from my parents and from my grandparents. They would say, hey, look, he's in charge. You do what he tell you to do. You know what I'm saying? Because he knows what's going on. You know, we already had this conversation. And what people don't realize, man, is that is a skill that is very lacking in our community, is edifying other people to grant that authority. And what happens is once people start to latch on to learning how to edify other people, it just makes leadership a whole lot easier. You know? And that's the reason why I always make sure I give homage to people who run shows, to other people in my community and circles and stuff like that. Say, hey, you might want to listen to that person because they know what they're talking about, you know? And then after that, of course, the other person, their job is a whole lot easier. Sometimes we like to focus on, you know, the followers telling the leader how to lead, but sometimes you need a second voice, you know what I mean, to confirm that leadership. And say, hey, look, this person is an elder, you know, and once you start respecting elders, then what happens is you develop your followers to be better leaders as a result of it. You see what I'm saying? So they get used to learning how to navigate this world a little bit better because they have a respect for authority, you know, and it makes it a whole lot easier. But as far as being the leader, it's up to you to learn as much as you can. It's up to you to do as much as you can and teach and basically become a subject matter expert. You know, say, for instance, if you're the oldest, you're expected to help with homework. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that, you know, the shoes are shined, that type of thing, you know, just basic stuff. And more than likely, you know, you would think that person would always get some type of extra, but they don't. Most of the times they don't. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those situations where, you know, you're gaining on the job training basically.
Now,
So
did you guys
the
feel
gift is
ever like
leadership.
deprived some of childhood, or what have you, or like you said, your younger siblings didn't necessarily get to talk to that you did or whatever? But did you feel some way that you were, or the other way? Did you feel, because it seemed like in your case, Lost, your parents imparted you with that, they edified you in a certain way and say, look, when we're away, he's in charge. So you felt maybe even more empowered as a young person versus someone who feels like, well, yeah, I didn't have a childhood because I had to be a second parent to everybody, and I didn't get to have fun that my younger kids did or siblings did or something like that.
Now, I will tell you this, though. They did give me some privileges, like things that I wanted to do, like learn how to play the piano, read music, be in the choir, that type of thing. And what it does, it allows you to create that curiosity where you want to learn more. And once you develop that curiosity to want to learn more, then what you do is you actually impart that wisdom to somebody else and teach them how to do something else. And what it really does, it teaches you a love for information, a love for wisdom, and a love for knowledge. And then once you start doing it, it becomes a habit where you can't help but pass it on. It's been plenty of times we've had conversations and stuff will come up out of me. And I was like, man, I hadn't heard that in a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it was because I was obedient that I listened to people who are older than me, and I'm able to pass that on to somebody else. And then what they do is that there's this also other end of this coin too, where sometimes the parents could take the information from the older child And they'll tell the younger child, why don't you be like your older brother? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you be like your older sister? And that also puts the pressure on them, whether it be unfair or fair, because everybody's talent is not the same.
Right.
You know, like my brothers, they had no musical inclination like I did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was always inclined for science and knowledge and wisdom and thirsted after that type of stuff. They just wanted to play, you know what I'm saying, and have a good time. And sometimes they would suffer in their grades because of that.
Yeah.
So I would have to say, hey, look, you know, you don't have to be just like me. Let me show you how I learned it, you know, and then you can teach that to them. And it's not this pressure where you should be like your brother and that type of thing. Because if I had to do that, if I had an older brother that I had to go through that, I'd probably be mad too. I don't want to be like him. You know what I'm saying?
I never thought about that.
So as an older person, you have to still recognize that you still have a role as far as being in leadership, but you also have to recognize that you're still a follower too. Mm-hmm. And you're still charged with somebody else's upkeep as well too. So I was able to pass that on to my younger brothers. And as a result, they're married, they have kids, but I'm not married. I don't have no kids. But at the same time, I didn't go out there and was reckless with my life. Yeah. And had kids out of wedlock and get married and get divorced and stuff like that. So I'm still leading by example, even though I haven't done the things that they have done. But I'm still just as proud of them because they've done what I've told them to do, even though I didn't do it. So I think that's still a wonderful thing. And they've actually become better fathers to their children. It's actually a beautiful thing. But it also stems back from my leadership to them as well. Even though I don't tell them what to do, I still guide them from time to time, give them that little nudge and that little push to let them know you're doing good, keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pete, you had some questions you want to raise?
Yeah, I want to touch base on two things. One, what was also saying, be like your older brother. I hated that growing up. My mom used, be like your cousin, be like your cousin. Well, guess who's doing a lot better than he is now? That's saying. That always something like they put your family members on this Mount Olympus, Mount Montage, like, and they make them so much better, but you're doing things the different ways. And you know, behind the scenes, he wasn't doing that good. He was always drinking, driving when he was drunk, high off who knows what half the fucking times. And when this came to light finally, because he fucked up so many times, my parents like, don't be like your cousin now. That's the thing. Second thing I'm gonna say, when it comes to kids, sometimes I realized when I was training kids, if you get down to their level, get on your knees or squat down to 101, maybe they won't realize that, but behind their mind, that actually connects a different way. But you're not up here talking down to them. You're down here, eye to eye.
Always done that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, King.
No, I was saying that I've always done that.
Yeah.
So and that worked really well because I met your daughter, and most respectful kid I ever met, to be honest with you. And kudos to you.
Thank you.
And the thing I want to ask you next, King, is because you travel so much and you've been all over the world, and I know you're not very religious. Now, you don't respect it. You're not. It's not your cup of tea, personally. But when it comes to marriages, you've seen with two different religions. What's your opinion on that?
The ones that I've seen that have worked, they have had a healthy respect of each other's religion and culture. Those that I've seen that didn't work, I saw a lack of respect overall that caused it not to work. But I believe personally that it can work, and I've seen it with my own eyes that it worked for other couples. But the two things that were there was the lack of respect for each other and lack of the other person's culture.
Right. Now you're actually doing that. I mean, Michelle, you know, certainly she's very, you know, religious, comes from that kind of background, and you guys are able to kind of have this relationship. But what was it, I guess, going in? Was you guys, I guess, had a conversation maybe about the importance of religion to her, or what her background was and where you were with it? And then was there something like, how did you guys get past that to say, okay, oh, well, he's not this, or she's, or you didn't have that perception that, okay, she's like a holy roller or something like that, and I don't want to be involved. So how were you guys able to have that conversation respectfully to say, okay, still, this is a relationship that we want to pursue?
We sat down and talked about it. We said, okay, let's address the elephant in the room, because observationally, I've seen that not work out. Like, people talk about the unequally yoked thing all the time, and a lot of people put that together with people of different religions. And I challenged that a bit, and I said, well, if I have a respect and an understanding for what you're doing, and you have a respect and understanding for what I'm doing, and we don't step on each other, I don't see a reason why it can't work. Now, growing up, my example in my own home, my dad was in the church and my mom wasn't. They didn't work out. It was disastrous. So I didn't necessarily see a good example of two people not being on the same page religion wise working out, but I also observed people that were on the same page religion wise and not working out. So for me, it was like, well, religion isn't necessarily the glue that can make it work. How do y'all actually love and respect each other? To me, that is what I always saw as the common thread. So what Michelle and I did were, we talked about what would be the things that would make this not work. And for her, she said, if you do things that restrict me from having the ability to serve God and be with God, this won't work. And I said, I will never ever do that. I can guarantee that I will not be somebody that directly. Now, what I said for me to her that I saw wouldn't make it work is if she felt pressure externally from other people to see us be a certain way when it came to that. Like, she's a minister and was like, well, why hasn't your man ever came to church? You know, and I didn't want her to feel pressure from other people. I said, hey, if you're going to feel pressure from other people about my stance and how I am, then this can't work. It's the external pressure that I identified would have been why it couldn't have worked. So her and I communicated, and we put all the cards on the table, left no stone unturned, and at the end of that said, is this something that you're comfortable with? And we both said yes.
Now, okay, let me ask another question. Let's say you guys found Tyler not, and you know you will. Don't lie to me. I know you better than that. Would you feel comfortable enough getting married in a church?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah. But it seems like, just from what I hear from your conversations, it's not like you guys don't talk about anything spiritual.
No,
it's like you guys go in. I don't think there's any ground that she would feel, well, I can't cover this with King because he feels a certain way or whatever. But when you guys are talking about principles, when you guys talk about respect, when you guys talking about just what religion I think should be driving you towards. I mean, religion can certainly be a set of practices and do's and don'ts and how you hold your cup or whatever. But ultimately, the type of person that you're being supposed to be transformed into. I think you guys are unashamed and unafraid to have those conversations. Say, how can we be better as people? How can I be better as an individual? How can we be better as a couple? And those ingredients that make relationships work. Because again, I think a lot of relationships, and this is one of the things that we covered in the show, a lot of relationships are in one way or another interfaith. You may come into it of the same tradition, but then one evolves over time to maybe something else. Or you might be coming in with no religious affiliation at all, but one becomes, quote unquote, saved later on. But you're still in the relationship and you're still under an obligation to try to make it work.
Yeah.
So it seems like, yeah.
Yes. And Paul, I ask her questions. I ask her questions about what she's reading. I ask her questions about, how things are presented or whatnot, because I want to understand. I want to be able to help support her. Like, if she's praying about something, I'm, asking her, hey, to the best extent possible, like, what is this prayer doing for you? How can I help you continue that if this is giving you what you need? As I definitely don't want to be a hindrance. So I think that that's also kind of part of it too. I've told her that you're not going to expect me to be in the, a sermon, but I certainly like if you need space to write your sermons, or if you need to bounce a question or something, or help you go downstairs and grab you some water while you're at the table prepping or whatnot, then I can certainly do that. But
It's the common courtesy that you give to somebody. If you were preparing for a test or an exam or something like that, again, you would want that same kind of treatment certainly given to you. We also have my man from New Jersey, Anton, in the building. I'm sorry, I apologize tonight. It looks like the Devils, they're just getting outshot, outgunned, outmanned, and this is going to come to a bitter end. Certainly when they go back to Carolina, and I think they're going to close this series out. So unfortunately,
you're a Ranger fan.
but I'm again, I get into hockey 3 times. 1, if the Devils are in it and they're competitive, especially in the playoffs. 2nd, Olympic hockey. 3rd, Team USA versus Canada is like must-see TV, especially this last classic they did, the fights, everything going on. I get psyched up about hockey, but that's it. Outside of that, I couldn't tell you what the Islanders or what the Edmonton Oilers, I couldn't tell you about any of those guys, what they're doing. But I know my man Anton is a passionate hockey fan, and so he's been following this and whatnot. But when I saw the score tonight, I think it was 5-2. Carolina, they're just a better team. So
they have a lot more depth, Mr. Bennett. That's what it is. They just have a lot more depth. Lost in translation. That's always what's good. Goes to Sparta. King Smith, what's going on? I was trying to get on for the longest. I had to take care of a couple things behind the scenes. I'm glad you was. I finally got a chance to hop on and everything else. So, I just hopped on and everything else to what King Smith was saying.
Yeah, so we've been chopping up. It's been all over the place tonight. So again, it's past shows that we've done, any commentary. We've been just recently talking about the whole interfaith relational part. I know King is certainly involved in that. In the last show, you were talking about that, how you and your wife come from different Christian traditions and whatnot. So you might want to share a little bit about that. How it's been able to work in your situation, because back in the day, it was like if you were a Baptist trying to marry a Methodist, it'd be like absolutely not. I mean, so definitely people were a lot more tribal back then in terms of their allegiances to their religions and whatnot, and I think that's been lessening over time. But talk about that, how you've been able to make that work in your situation, and so any way you want to take that.
Basically, my wife and I just found a way to make it work. My wife was raised Baptist, but she's an atheist. I'm Catholic, and my wife never really had a problem with it whatsoever. I am religious, but most people would not find that hard to believe that I am. So my wife and I, when we discussed it, and early on, some time ago, my wife didn't have a problem with any of her kids taking part in the sacraments. So she saw it as a beautiful thing. She saw it as a way for, another way to bond with with our children and everything else. So she was all for it. She never really had an issue with it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I know it seemed a little bit different because not a lot of people are familiar with how things are done in the Catholic Church. So it took some time to explain things to people, to how things were done, certain things that went on. Mm-hmm. And, you're still going to have people that give you that strange look, but I tell them, listen, that's just how we do it here. Now, that's just how it's done, so on and so forth. And I know some people, like, for example, I have a cousin who's Catholic and his wife is Jehovah's Witness. They've been married for well over 20 plus years. Yeah. They found a way to make it work, and that works for them. Yeah. I know someone at my job, he's Muslim, his wife is Catholic, and they've been together for some time, and they have 2 children together. They find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult. It is a challenge in some aspects, in some areas. But if the 2 individuals find a dynamic that works for them, then it works for them. It's not always going to work for everybody else. But the best thing I can tell people is, like I said before on the show, if you can find a dynamic that works for the 2 of y'all, that's it. That's all that matters. I mean, who cares what everyone else thinks? As long as it works for the 2 of y'all, that's what counts the most.
For real. Now,
and that's
you're
what's
also
in the end of the day.
Go ahead.
You guys have a formula that works, who gives a fuck what everybody else says? It's your marriage at the end of the day. And the
exactly.
You guys live next to her, and you have to wake up next to her. It's just swinging a sandal or swinging kisses. That's up to you guys. Nobody's business.
Now, Anton, you're also in a unique situation in that not only do you come from this, just your family has sort of grown once again. So, how old is your oldest?
Kayla is 21. She'll be 22 next month. And just a few days ago, she just became a mom for
Oh,
the first
congratulations!
time. So
Congratulations!
yes, we have a new grandson, seven
This your
pounds,
fir-
6 ounces.
this your
This is
first
number two,
grandchild? Or your
second
second grand?
grandchild.
Okay, gotcha. And then, but you also have a very young child, also.
Yes, we have Kayla 21, Zeta, who just turned 21 last week, Avery 10, Carter 5, Sinclair 2.
So
I'm
you
about
have
to
a
hit with the
20.
Kevin Hart. Damn.
So, so you have a 21-year-old and a 2-year-old. I'm saying it's like you were almost there. The light was at the end of the tunnel, and you decided to go in for another 20 years. You know, like I said, I had my 3, I got my snip, and I was done. Unless an immaculate conception happens, which is still 1 in 5,000, it wasn't happening for us. But nevertheless, so talk about that dynamic that you got grown kids, you got a baby on top of that, and just that. What's it like just starting, or was that planned? That's intended. You was like, you know what? I think we can do this again. So how that dynamic, what was the thought process there?
Well, our eldest 2 we fostered, and the other 3 we had together. It was something that my wife and I always talked about. We always talked about wanting to adopt, and it can be a challenge, but it's a beautiful thing as well. I think some people at times can feel discouraged, and there are some challenges, but that was something my wife and I talked about long before we had our youngest 3. But it's a beautiful thing. It's some people may feel like how does it work? We found a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
We found a way to make it work. I mean, it's a unique dynamic, but it's a dynamic that works for us. It's a dynamic that's perfect for us and everything else. And that's the best thing I can say about parenthood. My wife is a great mom. She's a great grandmother too,
Yeah.
and I let her know that she's a great mom. She lets me know I'm a great dad and a very good grandfather too.
There
So
you go.
we that's the one thing is we complement each other on our strengths. We find a way to try always stay positive and work together. In other words, it's like we're each other's dream makers. We help each other get better in every sense of the word every day. It's not something that's simple. It can be a challenge. It can be difficult, but honestly, me and my wife was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
And how long you been married now?
15 years.
15 years. So King, I know you're, like you said, you're in this relational space and whatnot. Any questions, or anybody else have questions for Anton? In terms of how he's able to make this dynamic with the wife, their relationship, the kids, and again, because a lot of people at this age, they'd be like, you know what, we getting ready, to travel, empty nesters, and like I said, they're kind of going in again for this. So again, salute how that dynamic works. It's very fluid. It's very supportive, and you just be amazed on how much you can take on when you have that kind of support, when you edify each other. Yeah. What was
that
again?
As far as the kids, how are y'all, being that y'all have 2 different faiths, how are y'all working that in with your kids?
I take my children to church. My sister is helping me as well with that. My daughter already had her first communion not that long ago. Same thing with my nephew. And because my sister basically helps out because she's her godmother, helps her with going to classes, for religious studies and everything else. I'm starting to take Carter and Sinclair to church as well with me, so they have an understanding of what's going on, even though they're young, just to see the beauty of it that comes with it. My wife also helps me at home with it too. I mean, I'll be honest, there were times I kind of stayed away from the church, and I guess now it's helping me go back, and that's what's definitely helped me. To a point. And I was nervous, but my wife encouraged me. She's like, this is a good thing. You should really do it. You should, go back. I mean, she was definitely one of the person that helped me go along and help me get back onto that bicycle.
So you guys are raising them mostly Catholic? Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes.
How did that decision come across? It says that could be a big argument too, or a civil conversation.
It was discussed. We talked about it, and she never had a problem with it. Like I said, we talked about it, and she was very encouraging. She was very encouraging of me doing this. She knows how religious I am. She was just like, yeah, you should really do this because I guess what it is, she knows how important it is to me. And at times it can be a bit of a challenge trying to make the time to go to mass and everything and teaching the children the sacraments and everything that comes with it. But she was like, yeah, you should do this. And it was hard because when I was younger, I was going to Catholic school. So a lot of the teachings I was getting in school every day. So that was not a problem. Now there's not a lot of Catholic schools around anymore. So that's what made it even more of a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I've grown up in, moving from Greece to America, being an Orthodox Christian, and 95% are Catholics. It was like, you're Orthodox? That's weird. That's different. I was pretty much the black sheep in my school because I did things a little different than they did, if that makes sense.
No, it does. A lot of the kids that I went to Catholic school with, there was a good number of them that were not Catholic. So I did get a chance to have an understanding of Greek Orthodox because one of my classmates is Greek Orthodox. Some of my classmates that I grew up with were Pentecostal, were Baptist, were Episcopalian, Methodist, Muslim, Seventh-day Adventist. So I got a chance to get familiar with a good number of these faiths by just having those talks with them. Even in high school, a good number of my classmates that I graduated with were non-Catholic. One of my good friends is a Pentecostal minister now. And we used to have like heated discussions in the beginning, but then we got a chance to find, a middle ground to where we would have these great, healthy discussions.
Yeah.
And learning from him, it made me a better person, and him learning from me made him a better person. We still stay in touch with each other. It's been over 30 years since we graduated, but we still take the time to still talk to each other every now and then.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what it is. I just saw it as you take from others and you try to make you the better person. And then you just try to share with others and help them become a better person. I've always tell people, use your faith to make you the better person. Learn to be a better man or a better woman, a better husband or a better wife, a better father, a better mother. And build on that. Make yourself that better person every single day and lead by example in that aspect.
Wow. Now, you said initially, your wife was Baptist, but then she became atheist. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
and we were talking about that earlier, that oftentimes that happens. It's like at some points in your marriage, it's to kind of grow up in the driving the same lanes. That is, you have to be very intentional about that. But just as people evolve, just as life experiences happen, like I said, both of you may go into the situation not being very religious at all. And then there's a death in the family, or you lose a child, or something happens where you're sort of driven to a faith of some kind, or you take religion more seriously, or in some cases, people lose perspective over time. You always have to be, to expect a person as you go into a marriage to be the same person for the life of the marriage it can be very difficult for people to accept. But I think BMU just came into the building tonight. So again, he's probably in the background, but if you're back there, so how are you?
What's going on, man? How y'all doing? Can y'all hear me good?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
I'm feeling good.
So I have a question, because I do disagree with the intermarriages as far as faith and all of that, because when it comes to, I've seen it fail a couple of times in some couples that I know, but when it comes to leadership as a man of faith, so say for instance, I grew up Baptist. The reason that I should marry a woman that's Baptist is because, say for instance, I'm an atheist. And my wife is going to church being led spiritually by another man. And it's like he's teaching her and he's walking with her through her faith, and he's teaching her and he's talking to her and he's praying with her, and he's praying for her, and he's reading with her, and he's going through all these different things. And I'm an atheist, and I'm sitting at home while another man is covering my woman. And I think that if you're going to do that, I think that when it comes to the importance of being, evenly yoked, I think that's important, because both of you are eating off the same table. But if I'm a leader and a man over my woman, and I'm an atheist, then I need to marry an atheist, because neither one of us need to be in the church or in the church at all. But I feel like if a woman's going out being at the church, she's being led by other people. She's going through the journey basically alone. And vice versa. The man will be going through the journey alone if his wife was an atheist.
BMU,
So
I got you.
That's why I disagree with it.
I got you, BMU. I'm going to give you an example of what happened in my family. On my mother's side of the family, everybody's Baptist, man. I'm talking about from the top to the bottom. Our family has a bunch of preachers, deacons, trustees. I'm talking about basically we run the church. You know what I'm saying? And when my dad married my mom, he really wasn't really religious or whatever. So one day, my mom got us dressed, me and my brothers, and we just so happened to live next door to the church. Like within like 5 steps, you can walk off our porch and you'll be in the sanctuary. You know what I'm saying? It's just that close. I got pictures. Wow. I can show it to you one day.
I know that feeling lit. I mean, the house I grew up in, like the church that my family we grew up in, it's like the school and the church was like right there. Like you go out the front door, you see the church and the school. So I totally
play
get
with
it.
firecrackers in front of your house. That's all I'm saying.
Man, listen, let me tell you what happened, man. My mom got us dressed, we went to church or whatever. So one day my dad was like, man, she just keep going to church or whatever. So one day he was just like, you know what? I'm going to put my suit on and I'm going to go over here. Man, I'm talking after about 2 or 3 Sundays, my dad had messed around and joined church. And then with a year or so, he was a deacon. I was like, man. So in other words, it happens for different people at different times. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have the luxury of marrying somebody who is not on the same path because I know better. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a certain level of rules and experiences that I've experienced that I can't turn my eye to. And I can certainly see why some people would turn away from God because in their eyes, God hadn't done enough for them. You know what I'm saying? So I can certainly see that. But it happens for people at different times and you can't bank on that. Now, I will tell you this, as someone who grew up in the church and who's been in church my whole entire life, there are aspects of religion that for some reason we don't touch. And it's sometimes it's for good reason. And sometimes I don't think we arm people enough with what they need to know. And there are certain things in this world that we don't touch that I know of, that I don't speak of. But at the same time, it has to be something that somebody has to be ready for. So I've experienced things that I really don't share with everybody, but I know for a fact that I can't turn a blind eye to what I know and what I've experienced. So everybody's situation is different. Now, as far as King is concerned, and as far as Antoine's wife is concerned, that's one of those things that they have to be the bearer for those until they reach that point. They may or may never reach that point. But even you already know for a fact in the Bible, BMU, it says you're still supposed to carry on and cover your spouse, whether they go along or not. You still have a responsibility. Now, my whole thing is this: over time, it's just one of those things that you'll see it over time. You'll understand what at times. Right now, I'm in graduate studies as far as religion is concerned, because everybody else is drinking milk. I'm over here on this meat, man. I'm seeing things. I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but I highly recommend this. If you haven't seen the movie Sinners, there's something in there that speaks to everybody, where it talks about people walking that line between religion and what you love to do, and gospel and blues. And there's things out there that are waiting on you, whether you like it or not. You see what I'm saying? And whether we speak to it or not. And if you do enough research and enough information, there's enough stuff out there that I had to go back and I was like, oh, I never knew that, but I knew about that. But we don't talk about that, And as far as being a Christian is concerned, I think we're doing our people a disservice. We don't talk about the parts that we need to talk about because it's hard for us to explain it. And I think that is the reason why in the Bible it says you have to put on the full armor of the Lord. And I think a lot of us are just walking around with just helmets on and just boots, and we don't put on the breastplate and we don't put on the back plate. You know what I'm saying? We don't cover ourselves. We just get just enough armor to look good in the army of the Lord, but not enough to do no damage where the devil wakes up and says, oh, damn, he's up again. You see what I'm saying? So as far as that's concerned, it's up to us, BMU, as the example and the conduit for those who haven't quite got there yet. And then one day they're going to be curious, and we just have to be ready for them and say, hey, look, you sure you want this? Because I remember having that conversation with my uncle a long time ago. I told him I wanted to be a preacher. And he looked me in the eyes. He was like, you sure you want this? And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That's a warning. I said, I got work to do. You see what I'm saying? So I got a lot of work to do. So
he wants you to prepare.
Yeah. And now that I know, looking back on it, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Compared to what I know now. And could you imagine what I would know in the future if I keep going? So my thing is even though they may not have gotten it yet, you can't necessarily drag them because they ain't really done yet. They just haven't experienced it yet. And that's okay, because everybody doesn't get there at the same time. Yeah. But as far as me and my house is concerned, you know, y'all know the rest if you go to church. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have the luxury of turning a blind eye because I know better.
Yeah. Right. And that's what I was alluding to, because if I'm in the Word and I'm reading the Word and I'm studying the Word, and then I go to my wife and I try to implement what it is that God is asking me to do as a man in my household, she can completely be rebellious to that and not do any of it because she's atheist. You see what I'm saying? So that's what the confusion with me, my strong personality and who I am, that wouldn't work for me. Because if I'm in the house leading and God said, go this way and do this, and then she telling me, well, I don't believe what you believe. That's already division. And then we have children, that's furthermore more division, right? Because now my children are in limbo. Wait a minute. Oh, we all going to church? Yes. Wait a minute, mama not going? Why I can't stay at home with mama? Now you got one kid at home with mama, one kid at home at church with daddy. You have your household will be divided if the provision of the man and the leadership of the man is not followed. The provision of the house dies. That's why the Bible. That's why, and I think this is what I want to say in closing. I think that when are we going to get to the point where we start to embrace what the actual word says? Like if we really embrace it, I mean, it'll cut me, it'll cut you, Lost in Translation. It'll cut Mr. Bennett, right? It'll cut everybody who are believers in the word. It'll start cutting us to the point where, damn, this double-edged sword is really cutting everybody. It's cutting me and the people I'm trying to deliver the message to, because there are some things in there that are forbidden for men to do. There are some things in there that is forbidden for women to do. And I think that when you start talking about those things and start digging deep in those things, people really don't want to have those conversations. They want to stick to Psalms 23 because it makes them comfortable. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That makes them comfortable. They don't want to go to the second chapter of Revelation. They don't want to go to 2 Timothy. They don't want to go to 1 Corinthians. They don't want to go to Proverbs, right? Because those books make them uncomfortable.
You know
So
what, BMU? Here's my thing. Here's my thing. You're right. And I'm going to tell you why. Here's the situation. I think what happens is when you tell people what they shouldn't do, we don't necessarily show them what could happen if they don't. And that's on us. You see what I'm saying? Because we don't have the conversation that we really need to have with them for real. I've seen preachers go 20, 30 years and preach the same sermon over and over again.
Yes, sir.
They don't talk about the consequences. You see what I'm saying? They don't really talk to people about what we're up against. And that's the main reason why I always say we wrestle not with flesh and blood. You know what I'm saying? Because the very thing that you think that you love sometimes is the very thing that the devil sends to destroy you. But my thing is, if we don't have that conversation with people, we always telling them what the wife should do, what the husband should do. But there's another level of respect for God that has to take place. And you know what? They need to see what's on the other side of that. And coddling them with this other stuff ain't gonna help them. It's
okay.
Really not.
So and I won't give the movie Sinners away, right? So we'll talk about vampires as a whole, right? a vampire cannot enter your home unless what?
You invite them.
You have to invite them into you, right? What happens, and this is, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna let y'all cook. What happens if I'm in the house with my wife and my wife's an atheist and she don't believe in none of that, and I'm a religious person, I believe in this evil entity, and the entity comes to the door, and as a man, I'm saying, whoa, they can't come in here, right? Because if you've seen on Sinners, the lady said, why your big ass can't come back in here? Why are you asking to come back in here, right? So if that entity is at that door, and I know that, I'm feeling that in my spirit, oh, that's a bad omen. He can't come in. But if she don't believe, she can be like, you come on in. You see the difference? What I'm saying is what you're inviting into your space, right? You could be inviting something into your space just because you don't believe it. You could be inviting something that will come in and tear everything apart.
But here's the thing.
That's where I spoke earlier about having an understanding.
Hey, what's up, King? Get your speak to you, bro. What's going on?
Hey, man, what's up, man? Long time no hear. But yeah, earlier I said that if you can have an understanding of each other and y'all communicate that, then you're on the same page at a surface level because you have an understanding of the other person's space and things. It's like, to me, that's simple, but it has to be communicated and you have to have that understanding. If you don't, then yeah, it won't work. You are going to invite all of the external things, whether it was intentional or unintentional, because you don't have an understanding of the other person's beliefs.
I'll give you an example. In the Bible, it says, above all else, guard your heart, right? Well, your heart is a place where God manifests, and that's how people are able to see the fruits of the Spirit, that you have kindness and loving and stuff like that in your heart. Well, as a person who's looking for a wife, I know instantly when I try them by the Spirit that they have something else living inside of them. You see what I'm saying? I'll give you an example. In the movie, I think one of the ladies was talking about Hanks. And if you know anything, if you're from the South, you know what a Haint is. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, sir. As soon as she said it, I said, wow.
Yeah. And if you do some research, if you go into the South, you'll start to see that the roofs of the inside of people's porches are colored a certain blue. You know what I'm saying? And they call it Haint blue. And Haint blue is supposed to keep the spirits out, to keep them from crossing water or the sky, and they're thinking it's daylight, that type of thing. But my whole thing is this: what do you do with somebody who invites the devil into them because they're dissatisfied? That's when you start to have real conversations where you start peeling back layers. And we have to be able to demonstrate with them that, hey, look, I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to help you, and we have to be able to introduce that love and to replace whatever that evil is in them that they don't see. And sometimes you can actually hear it. You can feel it even in the comment section. Sometimes when we have people coming in raising hell, that's usually a devil. And I'm usually quick to kick them out because it's derailing our conversation. You see what I'm saying? A deeper level conversation. So that's the main reason when I see other people, they don't quite get it yet, you got to give them breadcrumbs over time. And then eventually they'll get it. As long as we're here, we're here. But like the Bible says, let those who have ears hear. And eventually an experience will happen. Well, they're going to want to ask you questions and they'll be like, oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. Let me ask him. And then we start to have that conversation.
One thing I want to mention is, I think I mentioned it before a while back. When I was younger, I was hanging out with people who were not religious. So I never stopped believing, but I drifted away from the church to the point like, honestly, what's the point of going? I'm like, he knows I believe, whatever. But that was a wrong mindset from me. Now that I go on a regular basis, I can go every Sunday, but I go every other Sunday or when available, I can go. I feel a lot better coming home. I feel a lot better leaving. I feel a lot better praying in the morning. And I feel better having these conversations with people. So what BMU is saying, he's actually 100% right. I do also believe, as long as it is a Christian faith that a woman is, if it's Baptist, Catholic, or whatever. Even Father Costantino, who was on the channel and on the show, says, some can mix really well together. Like he knows of a priest in the Greek Orthodox Church. He's married to a what was it? Trying to remember what was it? Baptists, and they make it work as long as it's under the Christian banner. Does it really make a difference which kind of Christian? As long as it's Christian. Why can't you use
That's what people lose it, man. When they want to put a label on it, it's really just us versus them, and that's it. To be honest.
And again, it's all in all of this.
Yeah, whether you label it one thing or not, it's always us versus them, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And I actually had these multiple conversations with people, and when you start talking about more a little deeper stuff like Archangel Michael or Virgin Mary, oh no, you can't talk about that. They freak out. Like, why? What was we're gonna have that conversation? If you're going to talk about God, you want to talk about Virgin Mary. You want to talk about Archangel Michael, one of his most powerful angels out there who kicks ass like
Gabriel.
So you can't talk about those stuff, but you can talk about everything else. But you're missing the other parts of the Bible. It is a big overall. I'll leave it there.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is ultimately the quality of your relationship. Again, we can't stress enough that communication, the talks that people have. Going in with the intention of getting on the same page on certain things. So even in the example that you had mentioned, BMU, about, again, if you're married to an atheist woman, even then, if there's cooperation, so if she's going to respect you as the covering of the household, then I think certainly that's something that you can work with. But again, you can have a woman, you guys go to church on, so I've seen plenty of people who go to the same church and they still don't get along because they're not on the same page spiritually. So I think we try to limit this to, well, that you go to the same church or you're Protestants or you're, whatever, however you want to define yourself. At the end of the day, it's still going to boil down to you as individuals, what you believe and, what you are willing to live with and things you will not tolerate. And I think in any relationship, regardless of your religious affiliation or lack thereof, those things have to be well suited, explained so that you're not going into a situation blindly. And again, even if you did, again, life has a way of changing us in one way or another, both good and bad. And so are we going to have not only the sternness, because I hear a lot of people when they talk about religion, this sternness, I got to hang on to this thing. But there's not the grace, there's not the flexibility, in a sense, not that you compromise your values, but understand that people evolve and change. I'm not the same person at 55. I'm not the same person I was at 45 or 35 or 25. And in a marriage, I think it has to have a certain level of elasticity to accept the changes that can happen at any point in injury. Something major happens, you lose a child, or you have more children, or whatever it is your relationship going to be strong enough and have that flexibility to take all those changes in your human journey? And I think for a lot of people, you will want something so strict and so rigid that nothing's to change, but I don't think life works that way. And so I think it has to be, while yes, principles and core things need to be there, your foundation, your roots, but those roots have branches, and those branches can grow in a lot of different areas. And so I think that is the trouble that I think a lot of couples have, regardless of your religious affiliation or lack thereof, that you're not having those conversations that foster that kind of environment where I can still grow as an individual, and hopefully through the example that you're setting, that you will make the path that you're on desirable. To say, look, I want to be what you are. That is why, again, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 talks about that if you convert but your spouse remains as they are, you're supposed to stay there and hope that because of the life that you're living, they're going to say, you know what, I want to be that. I want to be more what you're offering. That is attractive. And again, you're being that salt and light into the world. So I think that's really where a lot of this is. I mean, just me personally, I wouldn't necessarily endorse it in outright to say, yes, if you're a Christian, marry a Muslim, just outright. But I would say that for those who are trying to make it work, I think there's principles that allow it to work. And that is working, that I've seen over these. In fact, my whole interest in this conversation came because, again, a good friend of mine who had died, he's Muslim. He's married to his wife, who was Muslim at a time, but she became a Jehovah's Witness later. But they were married 40 years. And so, so that kind of sparked the conversation at what is it about that dynamic, how they were able to work that out. So that's all I want to say. Yeah.
And I want to say too, just to add to it, like if I'm looking at two things, if I'm looking at it from a spiritual level, if I believe in God, I also must believe that there's the devil, right? You have to believe good, there's bad, evil, good, right? There's a balance, right? And I believe that the enemy, I think that the devil, he consumes those who are the most vulnerable. And I think that if I'm in my house and I'm trying to lead my house, that's a lot, Mr. Bennett, to just think about what you just said. That's a lot of work, being with somebody who is an atheist or a non-believer, and you are trying every day by getting up in the morning, getting on your knees, praying every day, praying before you go to bed at night, going to church. She's at home. You're separated from, if she's atheist, you're separating yourself from your wife, so she's not going into the place of worship with you. And then you look 18 years later, your kids are grown, they're confused, they don't know. She still hadn't got the picture yet. You're 18. The kids are confused, they don't know what to believe in. So now they in limbo. Do I go to church with daddy? Do I believe what daddy believe? Do I believe what mama believe? I mean, it's just, for me, it's just a heavy load to carry that most people shouldn't want to carry. And I'm not saying for those, if it worked for you, it worked for you. But I'm just, and another thing is, like Job, I really believe that Job's wife was an atheist, because when Job went through his worst parts of his life, what did his wife say? Why don't you just go ahead and curse God and get this over with? What if what happened at the end though?
He stood his ground.
He stayed with his wife, and he had more kids with her.
Oh,
so I'm just saying. So again, I think, but what you're saying is like, do you want to? All right, so let's get real with this. Do you want this to be easy? To me, this is almost like what you had those private Christian schools, and the only kids they wanted to enroll were the kids that were essentially Christians, or the ones that fit their philosophy before they entered in. But if you're talking about going after the lost, then why are you going to have this criteria where they're basically kids you don't have to reach, you don't have to transform? So again, if you want your life to be easier, yeah, and go and marry somebody who's exactly in lockstep, 10 toes down with that which you're living.
Right.
But if you really want to talk about the Christian life and what certainly those who came before us, what they had to go through and endure to win souls for the lost, it even cost them their lives. So we're talking about, well, I can't live with this woman, or I find it's going to be hard to live. And I'm not saying it's preferred. I'm not saying to act unwisely and live in a way that can bring more to your life. But if you find yourself in that situation, then sometimes at the same time, we got to be like, look, we got to man up, and we got to be, okay, this is why I'm married to an atheist woman. Okay. If that doesn't grow and develop your faith over time, then maybe, again, that's something that you need to look at, or you just looking for where I don't have to work as hard because everything is on automatic. So we got to look at, a lot of people live in that situation and are able to make those situations work. We can't run away because it looks harder to us. And so we just rather just give up than not at least make the effort. If God is supposed to be greater than anything or anyone, that my God shall supply all my needs, then are we walking in that when we're engaging with the people we have to engage in, even if they're not necessarily on the same page with us? So I think at some point we got to grow a spine to say that despite this situation, I'm going to make this the best situation possible and live and walk on my faith and have the faith that God will ultimately produce the result. I think we can't just want things in such a way that it always fits what we want all the time.
No, but how does that work with reciprocation though? Because my thing is, if I'm praying for my wife and my wife is an atheist, and my faith and me praying for her every day, what happens when, because it's ebbs and flows in marriage. So I'm praying for my wife, I'm covering my wife, even though she's an atheist. But then when it's my turn to be prayed for, who's praying for me? Who's covering me? You see what I'm saying? And she's an atheist. Who's covering me in prayer? Who's laying hands on me and saying, hey, I know you're stressed. I know you're depressed. I know you're going through something. I'm gonna pray for my husband. Who's praying for me if she's an atheist? She don't believe in it.
I got you, BMU. Here's my thing. Before I knew the Lord, I had people praying for me You know what I'm saying? Before I even knew they was praying for me. And you got to believe that those prayers will carry you well beyond your years. And even though it may not seem like your wife may be not praying for you or whatever, you're going to be covered regardless. You see what I'm saying? Because God honors your faith, whether the other person does it or not. As long as you pray to him, he's your Jehovah Jireh. He's your provider. You see what I'm saying? He's your protector, you know, that type of thing. And as long as you stay plugged in, you should be fine, whether or not those people under you or not. Now, here's the thing. As a practitioner of the word, there are certain things that we should do on a regular basis, even though we may not tell them chapter and verse, we can still teach them the principle. And as soon as they get the principle, I'm like, hey, let me show you where I got that from. And then that way they'll know where to go in case something happens to you. If they need to give somebody prayer, or if they need to pray for somebody else, they'll know exactly where they can find it because you showed it to them in a loving way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and you don't know when people are going to get it. I mean, you talked about that on the Friday show. Your uncles tried to teach and tell you things in your youth that you might not have gotten until years later. Exactly. So again, you don't know what you're planting. You know, you may think that what you're planting into that person, even though you don't think they're taking it in, that's up to God to grow that. But you think that you have to control every aspect of the situation, and you realize over time that you don't. There's very little you have control over, except your personal conduct and your actions. But God is ultimately the one who gives the increase. And so those are principles also that, you know, if you were in that situation, which I know you're not, but I think that's something where, you know, we can certainly encourage if you're a man in a leadership position and you're dealing with someone who is like that, that is ultimately how you're going to win them over. It's not your battle to fight, it's God's, but you're doing it with the weapons that he's given you. So the things that you're doing that, again, as Law said, that he will honor that, but it's in his time and you can't force that on anybody.
In other words, let it happen on its own. Just lay that foundation.
Correct.
Yeah. You know what, Mr. Bennett, I'm going to let y'all in a little conversation that me and BMU had a long time ago. And we were talking about pivoting the channel a little bit. And we started talking about religion, you know what I'm saying, a little bit more than everybody else. And I explained to him, I said, look, the algorithm is not going to be favorable to us. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat. And then all of a sudden, we started listening to other people's channels. And they started copying what we were doing because I know for a fact they weren't doing it because before I showed up, they were talking about this other stuff. And now when we go back and we listen to it, it's that now they're introducing religion. And I know exactly where it came from. It came from over here because we decided to stand our ground. And that's the reason why our conversations are more dynamic. They're more fruitful. They're less confrontational. You know what I'm saying? Even though we have people ghost watching, they watch our stuff, they comment, you know what I'm saying? They have all kind of shows about us. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's going to take time. You know, the numbers may not grow as far as other stuff because people have an appetite. And I told you, we're going to have to develop people to have an appetite over time. But it's up to us to just be diligent. And like I said earlier, you know, they're going to get it eventually. And as you can see, the algorithm is now starting to work in our favor because everybody else is starting to do it. But rarely do we get credit for that. Just know that it's starting to work. And I'm watching. You see what I'm saying? I'm watching. And you can go back and you can pay attention, pre-circle what we start making the change to what it is now. And you listen to these people's conversations. They're having more productive conversations because we started it. And we may not always get credit for that.
You planted those seeds. That's basically what it is.
Of course, people want to know it's safe.
Really fast.
And you know, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let y'all have it because I gotta go.
Yeah, we wrapping up. We were over time, but again, very fruitful for and grateful for the conversation. But we're gonna wrap up after. So BMU, then Ghost, you can certainly come in and start the wrap up.
So Mr. Bennett, I just want to say this, make Mr. Bennett laugh real quick. So Mr. Bennett, I just want to sit down and talk to God for a couple of days because He telling us to be with women that don't believe. Listen, I went back and I was reading the other day about Hosea. I'm like, what is God trying to do with this story here? Like, you know, just be with this woman. And then not only did he be with a woman that was out there promiscuous, but he made him name all the children. Jesus Christ. So, we'll talk about it, Mr. Ben. We'll talk about it. I know we're going to end the show, but golly.
I hear you, man.
All right.
Good stuff. Pete, go ahead.
Good night, y'all.
Yeah,
appreciate it being a while back.
Good being you.
I dated a woman that was non-Christian, a Hindu woman. Whoa, that was the worst experience in the goddamn fucking world. Because our different mentality, our different moments where we believe we clashed all the time. But what was the final straw for me? Telling me, she was arguing me about Greek mythology is actually a real religion, not history. And Christianity is actually a fake religion. And it should have never been to that level. I want like, are you fucking kidding me here? It's proven facts that Jesus was around. Jesus did all this stuff. But that's all fake because you don't want to believe it. You don't
know
have
what
to
you should say.
believe
You should say, Peter. Say
it.
it. Could you give us some examples of how you're right, and let them walk right on into it.
And here's the funny part, Lost. Here's
that's how you have a conversation for real.
Yeah, here's the funny part. She went to a Catholic school.
I went to Catholic school for 1 year, so I understand. Go ahead.
Yeah. So only thing I'm saying, I'm not saying it can work. Okay, I think if it's still, like I said earlier, if you're under the Christian banner, I can see it would be a workaround. But if you're going from Hindu to Christian, I don't see that working personally. Like there are exceptions, like King and Michelle, for example, they make it work. But most of the times, can it work? Cannot work. You never know.
Indeed. All right. Well, again, first of all, I just want to thank, as always, we've been honored tonight, and I mean that in the best sense of the word, that Brother Anton, my Jersey brother, Lost in Translation, King, joined us tonight. Before we go on, Lost, and again, I got to shout out your channel, because a lot of folks, we talk about this conversation that we kind of morphed into tonight. If you guys want a deeper discussion, a deeper conversation, you guys need to go over to Lost in Translation's channel. And what's the dates again? When do you guys meet?
Usually on Mondays, we on Humble Dads podcast.
Monday night on Humble Dads. I'm telling you, if you want that conversation, so you got Michelle, you got King and Michelle show on Mondays, you got Lost in Translation show on Mondays. So again, there is powerful content. May not get all the likes and clicks that other channels are doing, because they're not concerned with just banal conversation. But if you want thought-provoking conversation, stuff that you can go back and have a conversation with your wife about, or the partner in your life and whatnot, and really start to think about your relationship in different ways, I think both of those channels certainly offer a lot. And Brother Anton, I got to hit you up, because you need to be in this space somewhere. I'm just saying, I appreciate you being a guest, but you bring a lot of wisdom certainly to the spaces. It's always a pleasure to be on with you, whether it be talking about the sports or any conversation. You seem like you have a lot of bandwidth, and certainly I can certainly see a place for you in these spaces. So I want to encourage you in that endeavor as well, because I think you have a lot to offer based on your experience, your family background, your military service. You have so many things to offer to people that I think they would benefit from listening to you. But again, we just want to thank everybody. The Lady Navoa in the house, certainly keeping the chat going. We appreciate it. Braxton, Snake Fiend in the building. All you guys decided to join this channel tonight. But this is open to everybody. So again, once a month, we plan for a call-in show where you can come in. We can talk about, again, this was a previous topic that we covered. So you can come in and ham it up with us on that, or anything that might be on your mind you want to talk about. We want to keep this an open platform. All we ask is, one, you come in respectful, that we're not here to be playing around with. We want to have respectful dialogue and teach people how to communicate. Because one thing I'm seeing in a lot of these spaces, we've lost the art of how to communicate respectfully with other people, which is one of the genesis for the show. Me and Peter wanted to show people how we can come from totally different backgrounds and have an intelligent and informed conversation with one another. And as long as we can keep that same energy, you are certainly welcome to this conversation. And yes, she is the queen who is in the building tonight. So she's been certainly working with us the entire night. And so we want to thank you all for being with us on this edition of The Gray Area. So for myself, Mr. Bennett, for Lost in Translation, for Anton, and for
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, This is the gray area on this Sunday. You guys have a great week. You guys take care. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one. Be safe, everybody.
Good night.
This is where